Hopefully, folks have had a chance to review the meeting minutes from last time we met. That was on December 6th. So we'll take a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
Approved.
Awesome. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Excellent. Okay, let's move to our action items, a part of the agenda. So first up, we'll have Rich Nye, who's our chair of the policy committee, lead the board through the proposed changes. There's 3 changes that we're going to be reviewing. Rich will walk us through those, and then we'll review and put those for approval. So Rich.
I don't think Rich has joined us.
Oh, he hasn't.
No, but I think Eric Hawley would be prepared to do the report.
Eric, are you here? Johnny on the spot.
I'm totally here. Wait, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. And big changes for you, it sounds like, at USU with your president. So never.
Oh, yes. That's fine.
Right, would you like to walk us through, or shall we
Okay,
wait
wait, what
adjust
am
the
I?
agenda a little bit if we need to?
I'm pulling up the agenda on the board materials. I'm my apology.
No worries.
I'm making sure I've got the right agenda. I don't. I pulled up June 14th. You want to hear old stuff, folks?
You know, tempting, but we can circle back to it though. It's no worries.
Let me figure out how to get to the right the right board meeting. Policy committee. Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I literally was looking at the June meeting while it was snowing, and I'm like, okay, wait.
Something's not right here.
This is not working. My sincere apologies. All right. So as a policy subcommittee, we got together and we have reviewed and recommended a standardized format and template for UETN policies so that each policy has similar predicted sections and formatting. We are the other bullet points are there in the agenda. Where we reviewed a list of all the policies that we will be looking at, recommended some processes for communication, and including a flow for policy approval, essentially just standardizing how changes are made, how the governance or decision making is occurring on that, and then bringing those policies here to this board for review. There are 3 policies to review today. These were specifically selected as some straightforward, easy ones to test the process and to get some things into the format. If you will look at the policy attachments, there in are the actual policies. Let me screen share and I can bring those up for you to. All right. Share button going. All right. Do you see that well enough? Great. Thank you. We, as a general policy or as a general practice, as we bring these to you, rather than reading through each policy extensively, an executive summary of each policy and its purpose is provided here in this document as a summary. First one we'll look at is policy on board appointments, which establishes which appointments are made to and approved by the UETN board. The relevant changes to this policy, which I'll pull up, are very simple. Sections were reorganized to fit the new template. We added some definitions, added a procedural sentence, and there were some minor readability grammar edits. So nothing terribly substantial. We'll look at these one at a time. Laura, I believe for each of these, as we look at them, we will be asking for a motion to approve. Any discussion, and our job today is to formally review and approve each of these. Is that correct, Laura?
Yes, and you can do them one at a time or all three at the same time. I think it's up to Chair Baum.
Yeah, I think unless there's objection, let's do all three together.
Just ask a quick question. So in the reformatting of the policies and the reorganization, was there any substantive change in what the policies represent?
No,
Are we just changing or approving the formats, or have the policies been changed from what
there were minor non-substantive changes to this particular policy, just definitions added. New template, non-substantive, minor readability, grammar edits. The procedural sentence that was added. I don't have a red line on this from the previous. Laura?
Eric, it's the one in brackets right there at the top.
Right here. So one of the discussions was to make it clear that procedure is not necessarily policy, and that procedure can be changed by the executive director without having to go through the policy change procedure. In other words, the policy and responsibilities and definitions are static, but the procedure may be changed by how this policy is accomplished, may be changed by the executive director. Thoughts on that?
and why was it done?
If you want, I can chime in, Steve. So I think on this template, just to clarify, not every policy is going to have a procedure, but what we're trying to do is bifurcate what is a procedural operational activity from what is in policy. Right now, in our current policies, there are several components that are operational that need to be broken out into procedures. And it kind of conflates the overall purpose of the policy. So that's why this formatting change is out there, so it can enable the policy committee to focus on policies and to kind of clean up what our policies have, where there's some procedural content in there that can be done internally.
Okay, so like at the University of Utah, we have policy and then we have rules. The policy stands and has to be approved by the board, but the rules don't. Is that kind of how this plays out? The procedure are kind of like the rules? Kind of. It's a little more granular than that. Procedures are more like standard operating procedures. So, for example, if there's a policy on employee travel, there might be some procedures that we maintain here internally on who a person needs to contact to get that approval for travel, as an example. That doesn't need to be in policy. Okay. I guess all the policies fit within the guidelines of the university as well, right? Yes. And that's part of the work of the policy committee to ensure, or our process, as we do new policies or revisions. Part of that will be, of course, a legal review that ensures we're aligned to both university policy and state statute and beyond. Okay, sounds good.
I believe also that the policy committee in our last board meeting brought the template, and the board approved for the policy committee to move forward with this template to do the policy and list some procedures. And we also had a discussion that there might be some policies that we don't want the procedure to be outward facing, like cybersecurity response, those types of things. I'm just going off of memory of the discussion that we had in last board meeting about the template that the policy committee brought forward.
Okay,
Well, and typically procedure is going to change so often. You don't want to constantly be pulling your policy through the whole process, right? So I think it's definitely confidentiality on some of the information as well as just ease of making changes.
Yeah, the idea is that the procedure, whatever procedure changes made, are to be done in the context and honoring the spirit and letter of the policy itself,
Mhm.
providing the operational folks some flexibility to change those processes.
As
Yeah.
it says here, the executive director can make those changes to procedure, and I would suppose that would be without the approval of the board. Only the policy needs to be approved by the board.
Correct.
Correct.
That's the proposal.
And if we'd like, we can split it and take a vote on each of the three. I mean, perhaps with the discussion, it might be appropriate. So maybe Eric, if you want to, if there's anything more on this first policy about the board appointments, we can talk through that one more.
Any other questions with regards to this particular policy on board appointments? If
I would
not,
still
Okay.
recommend doing a concurrence on all three. As I've
Okay.
read them, they all
Okay.
make sense with what the work that has been done by the policy committee.
Okay, yeah,
all right,
happy to do that.
Keep this in mind. We'll move
Okay,
to
let's jump to the next one then.
policy number 2 then. Policy on public comment at board meetings ensures members of the public have an equal opportunity to address the board, reaffirms the board's commitment to services informed by public input. Changes to this policy are new template, added a responsibilities section, added the similar procedure statement, and minor edits. Public comment policy. Is here with the
Any
responsibilities
questions or
section.
discussion, I guess, on this one?
Similarly, procedures may be changed by the executive director without requiring board approval as long as it meets the letter and spirit of the policy and responsibilities and purpose. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Christina, you're muted if you were.
No, somebody was dropping something off at my
Oh,
door,
got it.
so my apologies.
Got it. No worries. No worries.
All right. So
Policy
yeah,
number 3
we can
then.
jump to the third.
Describes the function, policy on committees of the board, describes the function, roles, and responsibilities of committees established by the UETN board. Changes on this sections are reorganized, fit new template, removed redundant second sentence and detail in reference section, added definition section, procedures section added, and minor edits, bringing up committees of the board. Again, purpose, scope, policy, responsibilities of all committees. Each committee listed out with their particular responsibilities, specifically finance, policy, technology, advisory, and then the flexible procedures section that may be changed by the executive director without board approval. And references.
Any discussion or questions on this third policy? Okay, if not, I'll look for a motion to approve all three.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the following policies: board appointments, public comment at board meetings, and committees of the board.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. All right, any further discussion or questions? Okay, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, wonderful. That motion carries. Thank you. Eric, thank you for filling in. We appreciate that.
Thanks for getting me on the right date.
You know, June wouldn't be terrible though if we can fast forward. All right, well, we'll move along in our agenda to the discussion items. First up is UEN and Utah State Library USL technology inventory. So we'll first hear from our director, Kara Rothman, who's the director of Utah State Library. as well as Alan Lee and Brent Legg. And they're connected with Connected Nation. And just to clarify, UEN and USL help collect the data we're going to see here, and Connected Nation really helped us to analyze that. So, Kara.
Thank you, Christina. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, we
Okay,
can.
excellent.
Thank you.
Sometimes I have trouble with these earbuds. So good morning, everybody. We're really excited about this presentation today. We did run it through the advisory council and it went really, really well. Big highlights here are just our continued collaboration and partnership and great working relationship with UEN. It's always a pleasure to work with them and supporting the public libraries in Utah. I do want to give a shout out to Alan, who really saw this through, and we had 100% participation from all the public libraries. I think this is a huge step in continuing to support public libraries through training, helping them create more robust technology plans and really seeing what the needs are in each community. So, Alan, did I forget anything? I'm going to hand it over to you.
So, no, you didn't forget anything. I did also want to mention our hopes for the technology inventory. In the future, we want to continue 100% participation and include branch libraries. And we learned that we need to help the librarians identify how to answer these questions thoroughly. And we're hoping that we can continue that work so that we can see the same benefits from the technology inventory for schools for libraries. With that, I'll pass that off to Brent.
Thank you, Alan, and good morning, everyone. And I will apologize in advance. I'm a little under the weather today, so if my voice cracks or something like that, you'll know why, and I apologize in advance. Let me get my slide deck up on the screen, and then we'll jump into it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, let me just start with a few opening comments, and it's really good to see many of you that I know from working on the school technology inventory for many years since 2015. I've had the great privilege of working alongside UETN staff now for a full decade, and it has been one of the most enjoyable relationships that our organization enjoys. So thank you for all that you do. I still believe that UETN is the greatest research and education network of any state in the country. And I tell people that all the time as I travel the U.S. So kudos to you for what you do, and thank you for continuing to engage with us. So my name is Brent Legg. I'm the EVP of Government Affairs at Connected Nation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Kentucky, but we do work all across the country. This particular study that we're going to dive into today is unique as far as we're aware of any state that has attempted to inventory technology across public libraries in their entire state. The Public Library Association conducted a national survey in 2020, but it was by no means a statewide inventory of resources. So we're really hoping that this is going to be, just like the school technology inventory, something that other states can adopt and look to Utah for leadership in this area. So a few opening comments. The raw data from this report is available for circulation if you would like to take a look at the raw data. The report document itself, the PDF of the written report, is going to be more comprehensive with more data points than the slide deck that you will see today, just highlighting the key takeaways. So please do take time to read the full report. One of the features that we adopted into this first version of the Utah Library Technology Inventory is a key feature of the school technology inventory, where we created one-pagers for each library, essentially as a one-page summary of all of the key findings for each main library in the state, plus the Utah State Library itself. So 61 of those one-pagers are included at the end of the report. As Kara mentioned, we were thrilled to have 100% participation from every main library in the state. That's a huge accomplishment and a testament to Kara and Alan and their team for engaging those libraries. As Alan mentioned, our role in this project was a little bit different than it is in the school technology inventory, where we're engaged in driving school district responses into the inventory. Our focus on this report was just on the analysis piece and the report writing piece. So that is one difference. So again, kudos to the state library team who can take credit for that 100% participation. As Alan said, also, this study is focused on main libraries, not branch libraries in the counties. So the data that you will see pertains to the main library in each location. As Alan said, we would like to be able to expand the scope of this in future years to include branch libraries as well, which of course dramatically increases the scope of the project, but will be more comprehensive in its assessment of the state of play as it relates to technology deployed in library branches. So with that, let's dive into it. If I can get my mouse to cooperate. When you review the PDF document of the report, you'll see that it's broken up into these different sections, starting with an executive summary and key findings, an inventory overview and methodology, the results themselves, a conclusion, and then in the appendices, that's where you're going to find those library one-pagers that I mentioned a few seconds ago. So in total, this survey represents participation of 29 rural main libraries and 31 urban main libraries, so 60 total, plus the Utah State Library, making it 61. And in terms of the overview and methodology of the process itself, you can see here that between UEN staff and USL staff, they were really working on this project from roughly April of last year through September. So planning, survey development, and customization, creating a data collection portal to collect this data, and then the phase 2 commenced in August with data collection and review. And then that's really when we took over in October to begin the data analyses, the compilation of findings, and then ultimately the presentation of this final report. So let's dive into the results. So across all libraries in the state, main libraries in the state, libraries are serving an average of 47,000 individuals. Of course, urban libraries tend to serve more. Rural libraries tend to serve less. But on average, over 47,000 patrons. In terms of the number of staff in all libraries statewide, libraries employ an average of 12.2 full-time staff members. Main libraries employ in urban areas significantly more full-time staff, 22.3 individuals compared to those in rural areas of 1.3. Let's dive into some of the technology itself. So in terms of Wi-Fi access points, main libraries have an average of 8.6 wireless access points on their network. Main libraries in urban areas have more wireless access points, 14, than libraries in rural areas of only 2.8. However, rural libraries tend to have more wireless access points per square foot, 0.73, APs per 1,000 square feet in rural Maine libraries compared to 0.41 access points per 1,000 square feet in urban libraries. Nearly all of the Wi-Fi networks deployed in Maine libraries across the state were designed by a professional, either by a contractor, an in-house professional. Only a small percentage of rural libraries, about 3.4%, have Wi-Fi networks that were not professionally designed. And so the importance there is the adequate and appropriate distribution of those access points across the library to create even coverage and to minimize co-channel interference by each access point to the end user. It is a great sign that professionals designed these Wi-Fi networks almost in their entirety. In terms of outages per year, most library systems, 55%, say that their main libraries experience 1 to 9 Wi-Fi outages per year. Rural libraries are less likely to report their main libraries experience these outages, which I suppose is a good sign. In terms of slowdowns, rural libraries are more likely to report 10 or more slowdowns each year than main libraries. So that's 10.3% to 3.2%. I'll give you a second to consume this data. So over half, though, are reporting no slowdowns at all, which is good. And that's pretty consistent across both urban and rural libraries. In terms of coverage inside libraries, more than 3 out of 5 library systems say their main libraries have total Wi-Fi coverage inside the building. Slightly more urban libraries, about 2/3, have 100% Wi-Fi coverage within their buildings. And you can see how that breaks down across all libraries, urban and rural. I'll give you a second to consume that content. And copies of this presentation, by the way, are included in the board agenda, so you can access those if you would like to peruse this, of course, on your own time, as well as the full library report itself, the PDF document. I should have said that at the beginning. In terms of Wi-Fi coverage outside the building, slightly more than 1 in 5, or 20%, 21.7% actually, say the entirety of the outdoor area at their main library have Wi-Fi available to patrons, which was actually a little surprising, I think, to our team. Outdoor Wi-Fi is more common. Excuse me. More common at rural libraries, just over a quarter, than urban libraries at 16.1%. Approximately 1 in 6 libraries have no outdoor Wi-Fi coverage at all on the property, which is an interesting finding. Certainly, we still see, at least from our own personal experience working on public Wi-Fi projects across the country, that students are still lacking internet at the home and sometimes need to go park in a parking lot to actually do their homework. And so this is one of the reasons why this particular finding is interesting, because there is certainly a gap that you can see there about outdoor Wi-Fi coverage that would be able to serve those patrons. In terms of dominant equipment vendors in libraries, Ubiquiti by far is the dominant equipment vendor. As you can see there, rural libraries preferring their equipment solution at 69%. It's far less in urban libraries, but you can see there that Ubiquiti is certainly dominating. In terms of age of hardware, we have nearly 1/3 or 30% of Maine libraries that have Wi-Fi equipment that is 4 years or more older. You can see here that the statistics break down to less than 1 year old, 1 year old, 2 years old, not 3 years old, but 4 years old. We had no reports of 3-year-old equipment, interestingly. So about a third of equipment is more than 4 years old, which may signal a need to cycle that equipment out in the not too distant future. In terms of wired networking equipment, nearly 1/2 or 48.3% of wired equipment at Utah Main Libraries is 4 years old or older. Rural library systems tend to have older wired equipment at their main libraries, with more than half or 51.7% of their wired hardware being 4 years old or more. In terms of switch ports on that wired equipment, the vast majority of available switch ports are 1 gigabit in capacity, as compared to 10 and over 10. So you can see too that this may also be something that needs to change as that equipment is upgraded and the need for greater capacity on those ports is present. In terms of wiring infrastructure, Cat5e cable is by far the dominant form of wiring at main libraries. Some libraries have upgraded or installed Cat6 cable and above, but this is also something that may need to be upgraded as capacity needs change over time. In terms of content filtering solutions, you can see here that cloud solutions and hardware solutions are the dominant filtering solutions deployed, with 48.3% of rural libraries using cloud-based content filtering. That's 43.3% across all main libraries. And then, also significant numbers, particularly in urban libraries, 54.8% of urban libraries use a hardware-based solution. Software solutions and DNS filtering is generally not adopted at the same levels. In terms of the average number of computing devices available to patrons per 1,000 patrons, we see that Windows desktops dominate, followed by Windows laptops. Every main library in Utah has computing devices available for patron use in the library. Statewide, main libraries in Utah offer 1.36 computing devices available for use on site per 1,000 patrons. And then on average, rural libraries have fewer computing devices per patron available for use. In terms of the number of devices that are available for checkout, more than 1 in 4 libraries, or 26.7%, have no computing devices available for checkout. And among those that do, Windows laptops, Chromebooks, and Wi-Fi hotspots are the dominant type of technology that's available for checkout. In terms of software used for LMS systems or library systems, integrated library management systems, there are multiple vendors across the spectrum that are adopted across main libraries. Rural libraries tend to adopt 2 specific vendors, Follett Destiny and Verso, whereas urban libraries tend to use other solutions, which was an interesting finding. This is a snapshot of one of the one-pagers that you will find at the end of the report, summarizing all of the statistics for an individual main library. This particular one is for the Utah State Library itself. And so we really hope that as this report is consumed by you, by state legislators, by local elected officials, that this one pager will really help those individuals understand where technology investments are going and where there may be gaps that need to be filled. So please take time to look at your local library's one pager report, and I'm sure you will find some interesting takeaways that you did not know. And with that, I will pause and answer any questions, and hopefully the presentation was useful to you and insightful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brent. What questions do we have?
Hey, Brent, I was wondering, with those folks that are employed at the libraries, who does the tech support? There's a lot of devices here. Who does the tech support?
I would probably need to defer that question to Kara and Alan, since they know their libraries better than I do. So, Kara, I'll give that one to you.
Go ahead, Alan.
All right. So a lot of libraries will usually have their own in-house tech support. For city libraries, for urban libraries, they're going to have their own department. But for smaller rural libraries, that tech support is usually just the person who knows computers. So that's kind of quite telling from the survey that our experiences surveying the librarians, they needed quite a bit of help to actually get correct information into the survey. Yeah, it's usually just the person who is very tech savvy.
Mhm. Makes sense. I have a question for you, Brent. As you look at our results here from the survey, how do we compare to other states or other areas that you've done similar analysis with?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Utah has really been a leader in conducting these inventories, both for public schools as well as libraries. So, we can look at the 2020 Public Library Association survey to kind of get an idea of where Utah stacks up. But as far as we're aware, no other state has conducted this type of deep inventory level analysis. There are, again, surveys at the national level, but not nearly as comprehensive and in-depth as this. So that's really hard to tell. We do hope that other states will look at this report and see it as something that they want to replicate. And I think this is something that most likely Kara will talk about in forums that she's a part of as she meets with other state librarians across the country. But unfortunately, we don't have those benchmarks to look at.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Other questions folks may have?
I have a really embarrassingly basic question, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you count patrons or individuals? Is it card holders? Is it citizens? Is it active card users? How is that defined?
Alan, I'll defer to you on that question.
All right. So for urban libraries, they do have gate trackers. So just when a person walks through it, it'll automatically count them. But for urban libraries, it's usually just them physically counting them during a set period of time. If they want a total estimate, or sorry, not a total estimate, a total number of people that are using the library, they can pull data from their IMLS to see a snapshot of active users from their checkouts, or even pull it from their computer usage when they sign in to use the computer.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. It was very informative. Oh, sorry. Was there another?
This is Jim Stewart, and I don't have a question, but I would like to acknowledge Kara Hamilton from our staff, who did much of this work, and the success of this would not be as complete without her efforts. And I do appreciate everything that she put into this.
Absolutely.
Kara's part of
Thank
our
you.
project management team.
Absolutely.
I would second that. She's very conscientious, very thorough, and very patient with our library directors. As you can see, we have a big spectrum of the type of libraries that are in Utah, from very small little closet libraries all the way up to the city library in Salt Lake. So she's really amazing supporter of libraries and of us at the state library.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely. And a great partner to work with. In fact, as I mentioned at the beginning of my comments, we had a great working relationship with all of the USL and UETN staff that we worked with on this project, and are greatly appreciative for that.
Wonderful.
I
Well,
would like
thank you.
to
An enormous
echo that.
undertaking. Oh, sorry, Alan, please.
Sorry, I would like
No,
to
of
echo
course.
that sentiment. Kira is amazing, and I don't think the success of this project would be as successful as it is without her.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys so much, each of you, and for the enormous effort here, and really very informative, right? This really is quite helpful for us. So thank you for all the hard work that went into this. And
Thank you,
thank you so
Christina.
much, Brent, as well.
And again, apologies for my voice and being a little bit under the weather today.
No, it's going around. Thank you for jumping on despite not feeling 100%. We appreciate that. But take care. Get some rest.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
weekend
you.
and happy Valentine's Day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, let's move along with our agenda. Our next item is KUEN Local Content and Service Report. And for that, we'll hear from Jen Gibbs, who's UETN's Associate Director for Strategic Communications and who helped lead the team responsible for creating the first ever digital report. So, Jen.
Thanks, Chair Baum. I'll start with a little context and then invite us to tour the report. I'm going to put a link in the chat and my email. So as we go along, feel free to poke around in the actual report itself. So every year, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting requires public television stations that receive community service grants to prepare a report to their local communities, highlighting their content and services. And every year we here at UEN look to go beyond simply checking off this requirement. We try to present the information in ways that you, our leadership, and other advocates can use to communicate about our work. As Chair Baum mentioned, this year, our production team included our web designers so that we were able to deliver our first interactive digital report. And we would love your feedback on the content and the new format, especially as it relates to supporting your work as a member of the UETN board. So again, the link to the report, it's in the meeting agenda. I also added it to the chat. I'll share my screen so that we can ride along together, or again, you can feel free to go off-road. Okay, can everyone see my screen with the 2024 report there?
Yep, it looks good.
Oh, great. So first, I want to point out, if you're looking for the PDF version, come on up here to that upper right-hand corner. And if you're looking at this on your phone, you'll see a little hamburger menu. You click on that, and then you can get to the PDF that way. And that leads me to point of interest. Number 2, our web designers did everything they could to optimize the content for the most popular browsers and screen types this time around. If you happen to come across anything that's not working for you, that doesn't look great, send me a note and we will keep that in mind for future publications. If you give us the information of what browser and device type you're using, that helps us track down other ways we can optimize the appearance of our digital publications. As far as the content goes, it's one of the best parts of my job is getting to work with our team on telling UEN's story. And this year it was no different. As you'll see, we led with the television focus and services that educators are likely to be thinking of when they think of UEN, leading into a new interactive version of our network map. So I'll just take us on down there. Features our publications, our productions. Again, primarily a television-oriented deliverable. And our network map, we're really excited to be able to offer some interactive functionality that we have not had before. So you can turn layers off and on to get to see what it is that you're interested in seeing with the map. Throughout the report, you'll see quotes from our partners, and this is some of the most important content that I think we can share. Collaboration and partnership, as you know, are UETN's lifeblood. It's not just what we do, it's how we do it. So when you, our board members, come across somebody saying something good about UEN, it really helps us when you pass that message along. And it's also really great when members of our community and stakeholders share directly with us and give us permission to use their words. Most of the images come from our productions and staff capturing shots of their teams in action. This is one of my favorite spots in the report, is the video that we have that was shot with a drone while folks were out in the field. I think it really helps capture some of what our amazing people are up to make our network what it is and our services what they are. And a shout out to Provo Public Library that gave us permission to use their beautiful image. Again, our partnerships are essential to UEN story, the whole UETN story, and our ability to tell it. And so we're really appreciative of all that you help us do. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's a fantastic report. And I'm definitely going to be sharing that with folks I associate with. Just to encourage board members to please, go take a look, share feedback, share with your community about what we're doing. I think we need to make sure that there's more awareness, especially as there's so many changes, happening, that there's so much value that UETN is providing, to make sure that awareness is out there. So thank you so much. Appreciate that report. All right, moving along. We'll next hear some reports from our various committees. So first up, we'll hear on the Finance Committee from our Chair, Kurt Lovelace.
Thank you, Chair Baum. I'm going to start, I guess I'll share my screen and be easier to follow along, I think. If I can, I'm not sure I know how to do that. Let's see. I guess if I just do that, okay. And
it's up now, we can see it.
Yeah, all right, very good.
Perfect.
So I open up the file, so I hope that I can get to them. We started off by talking about the Trump administration and some of the early things that they have done. One of the things that they've done is put a freeze on a lot of the national spending, and that impacts UETN in a couple of different ways, but particularly with the E-rate program and some of the grants and things that we get. But fortunately, with the E-rate program, we aren't going to have any impact from that, because the get this up here. I've got pictures going and all kinds of stuff. I need to find my slide bar. Okay, so the it doesn't appear that the E-rate is going to be affected by the Trump administration's directives to stop funding, because the FAA has funding already in place for what we're doing. On the E-rate, the important thing for the board to know about the E-rate is that it's a discount for it is a discount for internet, television services, and those types of things for schools and libraries. For us at UETN, since 1998, we've been able to be reimbursed $246 million. And so we don't want that E-rate to go away. There's a little table on this report. I'm not sure that I know how to get it to be bigger. I'll see if I can get it to be bigger, but kind of this table over here shows you year by year what we have earned. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to get it to slide over. But anyway, it's important that we have the UETN funding on that. The second thing that I wanted to share with you is that we went over the audit as a finance committee. And if you're seeing my screen, I am really sorry.
Yeah, we're just seeing your calendar and things now.
Yeah. I have this all called up, and I think that's the one I shut down.
Well, while you're pulling it up, Kurt, I might mention I was on the call as well, and we talked through a little bit about how some of the ARPA funds may be at risk. Seems
Yes.
like E-rate we felt confident with, but some of the ARPA funds and some of the grants and things were where there was a little bit more risk for what we're seeing some of the changes politically.
Right. So I know how to talk, I just don't know how to use a computer.
You're good.
And when I don't know how to use the computer, it interferes with my talking. So I apologize that. So as you can see here, each year on the E-rate, some years we've gotten as much as 17 million. Last year we only, or in 2023 we only got 2.9 million, almost 3 million. But it's still money that we count on for our organization to go forward. And yes, some of the ARPA funds might be a little bit at risk, and some of the other funds that we're getting grants for.
Kurt, do you mind if I just chime in while you've got those numbers up? I think it's a good illustration of how the E-rate flow of dollars works. It's about an 18 to 24 month reimbursement process. We have a pretty significant carry forward balance that helps sort of float those funds for E-rates so that when those funds aren't coming through, we can still pay the contracts for all those broadband connections to all of our schools across the state. It's just, I think, worth the board knowing that sometimes from the legislature, every year we're asked about our carry forward balance. It's to help float that gap. You can see at the bottom of that chart, we still have some funds from the past couple of years still to be reimbursed. So it's not the fastest process, but it is one when we have that carry forward to float that. But anyway, sorry, Kurt, I just thought that would be something to know.
That's actually very good. One of the questions that I asked during the finance committee is when we start looking at the finances, and I'll show you on the audit report this year that this year we had a $1.9 million decrease in our net position, but we have around 30 million in funds and invested in different things. So we do have a substantial fund balance. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can close this one. Get to the other ones. My pictures are again on this are in the way. I'll just do it this way. All right. So you can see here on the financials for the audit, and Lisa, jump in if I say something I shouldn't be saying here, but one of the things that I look at is the net position of the organization. And you do that in a couple of different places, but this is the balance sheet, and you can see that our assets in 2023 on the right-hand side were 69,700,000. Total assets at 2024 are 67,200,000. So that's gone down a little bit. But again, in the cash reserves, you can see we went from 32,900,000 up to 35,300,000. And so we have an increase in cash, The reason that we have less assets but an increase in cash is because of the depreciation expense and the write down of the physical assets on depreciation and amortization and those types of things. And then when you look at the statement of expense, revenues and expenses, we don't have a ton of operating revenue, only about 9,500 in operating revenue. Most of our revenue comes from non-operating, and you can see down there the state of Utah appropriations. In 2023, we were appropriated 33 million two. In 2024, we were appropriated 35 million three. So we had about a 2.1 million increase year over year from the state of Utah. But when you look at our expenses there in the right at the top, but in the middle, our expenses are going up about the same as our revenue. And so you can see the broadcasting, the education expenses, the installation and transport, programming, management in general. You can see all those expenses there. So when you get down to the increase or decrease in our net position, again, about 1.9 million decrease in our net position. But again, we're still in total, we still have 63.4 million in our total net position for the organization. So doing really well. I think from that perspective, again, it's key that we keep our grant revenue coming in and our E-rate revenue coming in. And then when we talk to Utah State about our appropriations, we just have to talk to them about the things that we need to keep going and not have that decrease in our net position to the point where we can't operate. So I don't know, Lisa, I hope I answered that well.
No, that was good.
Yeah. So
that was really good. And the other thing I wanted to say, if we're done with the financial statements, one of the outcomes we talked about doing was for our fiscal year 20s, I'm actually going to jump for the topic. The other topic we have is our budget for fiscal year 26. And regarding just going long term with our budget, we're going to go ahead, and our goal is with Andrew and myself, we're going to go ahead and create a working draft copy. We're hoping to have that completed so that the financial committee can review it in May of 2025, and then it'll be presented to the board in June of 2025 for fiscal year 26. So that was one of the outcomes we did talk about, is that we're going to meet regularly on a monthly basis until and so we can get things flowing a little bit, and hopefully so the frequency of the meetings will be a little bit more at the first, and see how it goes. But anyway, that's our first goal, will be on the is for the budget for 2026 and have that presented to the finance committee.
So with our carry forward, is that invested in this treasurer's account, or is it a different?
The University of Utah, we're part of the university, so the university manages the cash, and and they handle it that way. And
so UETN does receive the interest from the fund?
No, the University of Utah keeps the interest income on that one, but they don't, it's how they do that for everybody at this point in time. So the interest income does go to the University of Utah, but they provide us an awful lot of service. I don't want to justify it, but they do provide us a lot of services.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
So
I appreciate that.
But yeah, that is good. And on a different note, we do have and we do monitor, even though there is a cash balance, we have some long-term commitments that are required to be paying. Like Spencer said, we do have an emergency reserve, but we also have funds put aside for our current software agreements that will be coming up that were paid with CARES. Some of it is community service grants and everything else, but we actually identified that for the legislature too, as to the commitment of the funds.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember, Lisa, what that amount was, but it seemed like over 3 or 4 years that we're already committed somewhere around $9 million already, if I remember right from the discussion at the finance committee.
Yeah, I'm not.
I think it's more like 18 to 20.
The commitment we have. Oh, I'm sorry. The commitment we have.
The future commitments. Yeah.
The feature commitments are probably closer to, I would guess, maybe I was thinking, and I can't remember, Andrew, but I think it's about 15 million or something, when you look at the softwares and everything else coming out. And then we have about, I'm guessing, I should have it in front of me, about a 10 or $12 million emergency reserve fund. Maybe that's what we're talking about on that one.
I had in my notes 19.2 million. I think that was the reimbursement amount. We'd spent 5 to 6 million to receive that reimbursement, I think, coming in. So I have just a few different numbers there, but yeah, we can track that down.
Well, then.
Well, thank you so much. I had some notes as well from our previous meeting about the budget request. I'm not sure if we're going to cover that in this section, or if Spencer, you're planning on covering that with your update.
I'll give an update as part of my
Perfect.
report.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you so much. We appreciate that financial update. We'll move along then. And let's see, next we'll have an update from our advisory councils. So let's see, Rick Gaisford, who's the chair of the UEN Advisory Council, will give us an update.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Really the agenda, we met last week in the advisory council and had a very similar agenda as the one that you're actually seeing today, that you saw everything today, which I think is really good because we found the information to be particularly valuable and that. So we began our meeting last week with the same the library inventory, and as one who has been working with the school technology inventory through its first five times, I can really see the value of starting this inventory with the libraries as well. And I think it will be the real value is going to be after the next time it comes, and we can see the growth in certain areas. We can see and begin to see more trends as those inventories are done over time. That's what we saw with the school technology inventory, and it's really helped us to be able to pinpoint areas that we need to focus on. But it's also been able to help us to as policymakers, legislators, and that ask questions about technology in schools, and where is the investment that they have put in that? Where is that going? We've been able to show that. This will be the same. I think that you'll be able to see from the library inventory is where is particularly for UEN, the support that UEN offers to the libraries across the state, and how important that support is, and so I think that that was, as we went through that technology inventory, those were some of my thoughts. And then as I was comparing that to the school technology inventory, again, it's one thing to do an inventory like that. It's another thing when you have 100% participation. It really does give real value to the data and to the findings that come out of that. And I think like the school technology inventory, those individual pages for each library, for each main library, are really important. I think they give a really good snapshot, and that really helps when you're working with policymakers, and that they can see what's going on in their area, particularly not just the statewide trends or the statewide numbers and that, but that they can also see how that translates down into their local community and what that impact is. So we have that inventory presentation. It was very well received. And then like you, we also we had the local content services report. I have to say that I really like the interactive report, as did the advisory council. As we were looking at that, that made that document so much and the information in that document so much richer. Particularly, I love those scrolling numbers that land on certain things, because those are little tidbits of information that we can talk about. And I will be using that report in the work that I do, with technology leaders, to make sure that they see that, because I think it really brought to life a lot of the work that's being done. And so we have that report as well. And then we also had a report on broadcast programming, particularly some of the things that UEN has been certain series that UEN focuses on, and Laura, I'll certainly let you jump in and share anything that you want to on these, but we had a focus particularly on the Art Connection, the Students in Focus, which is highlighting great students across the state and some of the work that they're doing. And it's good to see the work that we're doing in highlighting students. And then some of the work of the UEM professional development team, particularly as it relates to a program that they've been producing called PDTV, which is it's a high quality program in helping teachers to be able to better understand how they can use the technology tools and resources that UEN does provide. And then we also took a look at the programming block, which I think is always, and how for UEN TV and how they really have, focused in on how, to help the community to make, really rich programming available all day long, 24/7. And so we took a look at that as well. Those were the highlights of the things that we had, and you're seeing it today. I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has on the advisory council. I have to just maybe talking about the advisory council. As you know, you recently, through your work, you basically reconstituted the advisory council, and we went from a council of about 26 down to a council of 13. I think it's been really beneficial to have done that. We've been having much better participation and much more interaction, I think, from being just a little bit more a little smaller, but that really has helped. I think the work that we can, as things are brought to us, things that we can report back to you. That's our report from the Education Advisory Council, unless you have questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions folks may have? All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate the update and the report and all the hard work you guys are doing. So thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to the UTN Advisory Board or Advisory Council. I didn't see Casey Shakespeare, so Sarah Bauman, I was told that you'd be available to help fill in for us.
Yeah,
Wonderful, thank
so
you.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. You all seen that? So yeah, thank you. Great to see everyone. And both our council chair, Casey, and our vice chair, Kelly, were unable to attend. So I'm going to do a brief update on what was discussed at our meeting last week. Before I get started, I did want to also note that I'm going to talk about one of the grants, the DLT grant through USDA that we're applying for, but we're also applying for the HRSA grant that funds the Northwest Regional Telehealth Resource Center, NRTRC. We are in our final year of that program. The deadline for that grant is in April, and we've received various communications from the new administration related to that grant. We have a meeting with our HRSA officials actually next week. We're still very hopeful that that funding will continue. So that's just a note because that's not included in our slides. Okay, so we're approaching our USAC deadline for the Healthcare Connect Fund, April 1st. And we intend to add the following additional sites to the network. There have been 3 RFPs, either completed or in process, to obtain bids from the telcos for these sites. And our hope is that all of these will go through. Now, there's some timing issues related to the USAC deadline in April, but we also have received word that it's very likely that we'll get an extension. That extension may not be known until about a month before the deadline. So it's still TBD, but we're excited to support the circuits for these sites. And then, some are also secondary circuits. Okay, so this is the grant that's really getting a lot of attention right now because it's due March 6th. Right now, we are working with the following hospitals and clinics to support this application, but there are more folks actually coming on board. I just got a text message like 2 minutes ago. So this list actually may grow. We're excited because this is a collaborative request. We're the consortium lead, but it will include equipment needed to deliver telemedicine to remote clinics, residences, and/or mobile units such as ambulances. The ambulances is actually King County Hospital, Kurt's site, that we're working with to make sure that they have the equipment that they need to deliver telemedicine services in their communities. So again, obviously that's a federal grant, and so far it's looking positive that that will move forward. Okay, this is also really exciting. So as you all may know, we're in the final year of the CARES Act funding that funded the purchase of the equipment and software subscriptions that were deployed in 2021. So we deployed 170 kits to 21 school districts focusing on rural Title I schools. So we have joined forces with folks at the U, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services, and other stakeholders to really coordinate our efforts and develop a center for school-based health that's statewide and includes both behavioral and physical health, research, data sharing. It's in its early stages, but we're having regular meetings, and the center is not officially created yet, but it will be hopefully within the U of U and connected to the TTAC lab. But I think this is really awesome because there's been a lot of sort of folks in this space, and we're really focused on the technology and training side of things. But we're now partnering with Intermountain related to the provision of healthcare services, but also having conversations with the districts about how we can bring in local providers, and then marrying the behavioral health and the physical health so that folks can really look at things holistically and provide both services via telehealth. So more news to come on this, but it's a really exciting initiative and collaborative effort. And then from a strategy perspective, at our last advisory council meeting, we formed a committee to help develop policy and strategies that will then come to the UETN board for some decisions. And I think this is great because we're going to be meeting in between our regular council meetings to move the strategies forward. We've got some logic models that are going to be finalized before the April meeting. So you'll be seeing a version of a strategic plan at your next meeting, hopefully. And it's just a way for us to advance the work that we do for them to be able to provide more sort of hands-on guidance related to strategy, and then eventually to really make policy recommendations. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Any questions, anyone?
Tim has a question. I see it.
More a comment, just this is exciting work. I know, especially with the school-based telehealth, that there's been not a lot of, it's a really developing area. So a lot of it, Intermountain has been pushing to help service and develop, but having a central center for it, I think will make a tremendous difference. I know there's been a lot of work with legislation that's under review right now, and just finding what that looks like, which I think will be really important too. So, Sarah, thanks for your work on this. Look forward to hearing more about the progress of that initiative and the others that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I'm really excited about it.
There we go, off mute now. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. We really appreciate that. Thank you for the update and for all the energy and passion. It seems like you guys are really making some great changes. So we appreciate that. Thank you. All right, our last report will be from our Executive Director, Spencer Jenkins, and he'll be updating us on all things legislative session and the fun that's happening there. Spencer.
Thanks, Christina. Before I jump in, I noticed Leah Voorhees from the State Board of Education is on and failed to notify you, Christina, of this appointment. But she has been appointed as a representative for public ed. As you know, Patty Norman retired at the very beginning of this year, who we miss, was a longtime board member and a supporter of UETN. Leah, would you mind sorry to put you on the spot, would you just spend a couple seconds, I guess, introducing yourself to the UETN board?
I would be happy to. Thank you. I'm Leah Voorhees. I'm the interim deputy superintendent at the State Board of Education. When I'm not interim deputy superintendent, I'm the assistant superintendent of student support, which is all of the sections at the State Board of Education that support instruction, the largest of which is special education, but school safety, prevention, child nutrition, school improvement, all of that kind of work. I also serve as the state director of special education for the board and have, this is my 9th year as the assistant superintendent. And I'm a psychologist by training, so I was very interested in that in the last advisory council report. Excited to be officially appointed to the UETN board. Patty was my supervisor. I was her assistant the whole time that I've been assistant superintendent. So I got monthly updates on what was happening at UETN. So not coming into this position without a reasonable amount of information. So that's really nice. So thank you for including me. I'm excited to participate.
Great.
Thank
you,
you
Leah.
so
Thanks
much,
for-
Spencer. And Leah, welcome. I apologize, but officially welcome. Glad to have you on the board. Thank you so
No
much,
worries.
Spencer,
Thank
for
you.
acknowledging that.
Yeah. Thanks, Leah, for doing that. And again, apologies to the chair for not notifying you of that update. Let's see. I'm gonna try and share just to make it a little more visually interesting, but not getting it there. There we go. And thanks, Leah. Look forward to getting more acquainted with you. It sounds like it's a busy transition right now, and a lot of neat work that you do. Just a handful of things to touch on, a few updates, and then I'll go over some legislative updates. Kind of a big milestone in the last couple of weeks as part of the ARPA funding we received and the infrastructure upgrades. Our dark fiber upgrade has been completed. That's been a year-plus long effort in upgrading our dark fiber, which is for those not as connected and well-versed in the world of networking, it's basically dedicated infrastructure that gives us the ability to sort of manage the traffic, especially in the high traffic areas. So these locations were along the Wasatch Front where there's a lot of traffic on our network. But this really provides some neat, I think, future-proofing opportunities for our network, some robustness that is much needed, but also will be a great investment for the future. So, Jim,
That's great.
That's it.
Sorry.
And then this was noted in an email to you, but this NRTRC survey, I just wanted to note really quickly. This is NRTRC is the federal grant that our telehealth team is a recipient for. We facilitate a partnership across 8 states in the northwest part of the country. You can see a bright orange color there with Washington State. We have a close association with them in this effort. The idea primarily is to provide technical support and awareness for telehealth services across our region, and it connects into a network across the country. The survey, albeit primarily out of the state of Washington, I think had a couple of interesting tidbits, kind of along the lines of what Tim's comments and Sarah's comments were around telehealth, that over 50% of services in telehealth are for mental and behavioral health. Interestingly, I think similar to this survey is one of the challenges is a lack of connectivity. And so when Sarah talks about getting telehealth kits into schools, there's really a focus on getting into areas where there may not be that access in rural or even urban areas where there's just not connectivity even to the home to enable some of those telehealth opportunities. And so it's really cool to see some of the emerging partnerships there, and we look forward to being a support to those in the future. So Tim, thanks for your comments there. A little bit of an update on our fiscal request. As you'll recall, these were the 3 priorities the board adopted last fall. Video conferencing software. This is to both renew the contract for K-12 as well as cover higher ed that was previously done individually by institutions. The second one is for some staffing for cybersecurity, primarily for assessments and testing in the tech college area. This would fund a couple of positions there. And then the third one, this was for the Nearpod software that we contract that is also coming up this next summer in June. So with this request is, that anyone that's been involved, our budget subcommittees are just wrapping up their work this week, and it will then kind of hit the horse race with executive appropriations next week when new revenues are announced. Our committee was a little bit different this year. They've made some adjustments, and so our committee is together with the Utah Department of Transportation as well as all of the capital projects, so the buildings that the legislature approves. And so we're kind of a rounding error compared to all the road and building projects that the legislature considers each year, which is good and bad, but generally I think it's a good fit because most of what we do is there as an infrastructure support to our stakeholders. As part of their prioritization, they identified internally with the committee some savings by which they're proposing to leadership to fund on a one-time basis our video conferencing software request. These 2 lines, this mirrors the governor's proposal. It essentially funds 3 years worth of the contract that we're pursuing with Zoom. This would be a great start. We're hoping it could be one ongoing, but we do also appreciate the work of both the governor's office and our committee in prioritizing this. And prioritizing it, in my mind, what I would say is above the line where they've internally reallocated funds so that they could use what was within the committee savings that they identified to fund this. So that does put us in good shape, hopefully, for funding of Zoom. The sort of downside of that is there are other 2 priorities for cybersecurity staffing and for Nearpod funding was not prioritized. And so that's kind of the trade-off at this point with our committee. As you know, the budget this year, we haven't seen the new numbers yet, but we're hearing is much tighter than in past years. And so overall, we are appreciative and glad that we're sitting in this position currently going into the next couple of weeks of the session. Just a quick note on the federal side. It was already noted earlier. Thank you, Kurt, for the things we're watching. We are watching things very closely because of several sources of funding that come from the federal government, both on the broadcast side and with E-rate, and as well as several grants that we receive. And if there are any major developments, we will certainly let the board know because there could be some significant changes based on what the new administration or even Congress starts to look at over here in the next few months. And then just a quick note regarding cybersecurity. Forgive me for those experts in the room, but this is sort of a rudimentary analogy I like to use in terms of where UETN works in its cybersecurity. In a lot of ways, our network is a little bit like a water infrastructure where we provide what a city provides or a municipality provides in terms of water, but think of it in network connectivity world. When we create that network connection to a district or to a university, it's then handed off to the IT folks that carry that connectivity to their resources throughout a district or throughout a high school. I note that only because from a cybersecurity standpoint, this creates a little bit of a challenge where our districts work. They have a lot of resources in place where they're managing their cybersecurity infrastructure. Of course, on the network side, we do a significant amount to protect the network as it goes out to the internet and the traffic going on and off to our stakeholders. But when it comes to actual security incidents, there's a bit of a fence we have to peek over between us and our stakeholders to find out what's going on. And so Troy Jessup's team over the last several years has worked really well in being a facilitating entity to make sure there's a really strong relationship in how we maintain our security posture in relationship to our stakeholders. There is, as most of you know, there's HB 40, the school safety amendments. It's a major bill to update from last year's school safety legislation. This year includes some language related to cybersecurity specific to UETN's role. And what it will do is require us essentially to work closely with the school safety center in establishing minimum standards via policy for our K-12 partners. We also are going to be required to help work on a gap analysis that will be due to the legislature at the end of this year. And also, of course, generally consult with the state security chief. As we've noted, in our next board meeting in April, you'll get a much deeper dive on an assessment that we're just completing right now on cybersecurity for all of education, both public and higher ed and some charters. Hopefully that'll give you a sense of where things are from a cybersecurity standpoint, but also hopefully it gives you a bit of clarity as this topic comes up in your various spheres, a little bit of clarity on where UETN is seeking to position itself. We want to make sure we're in a balanced place where we're a resource that we can provide both technical expertise and support, but also resources in terms of procuring needed services or software, but also not getting into the business of mandating or managing the actual cybersecurity of our stakeholders. With that, that's kind of our legislative update. As just a quick final note, Rick mentioned this earlier, our Students in Focus program is doing a lot of work. It's a growing amount of work as our team goes out and partners with digital media and journalism programs across the state. This was one just a couple of weeks ago in North St. Pete High. You'll recognize the last name of that teacher. He's the brother of someone a little more prominently known in the state, but we appreciate our media team in this partnership. It's really enlivening a lot of the things we're doing in our digital media area in sort of offering that support out to these different programs across the state. So with that, happy to pass it back to you, Chair, for any questions or discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you. A very informative update. We appreciate it. Any questions folks may have?
Spencer, Steve Hess, again, a community service grant. Seems like the Trump administration is going after that. Do we have any update on that?
A little bit. So there is proposed legislation by our very own Senator Lee that proposes to fund both NPR and PBS, which are the primary entities for public broadcast and radio and television, which would impact us. I've reached out to the staffing contacts I have in his office to understand the momentum behind this, if it's something that's going to move quickly or what it is, but it's definitely something we're watching very closely. We receive a significant amount of funds through that grant. And Laura, of course, is working closely with our national groups also to keep a monitoring eye on it, but we'll keep you updated. There could be a really significant fiscal impact if that funding goes away, not only for us, but our colleague agency here in the building with PBS Utah.
Just curious why did Senator Lee ever tip his hat that way? I didn't ever know he was against public broadcasting.
I certainly don't want to speak for him or any others out there, but I think there's been periodically concerns over potential bias in news reporting that comes from public broadcasting, and I feel like that's maybe the kind of the impetus for this, but we'll see where it goes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions folks may have? Okay, well, we'll look forward to the next update on where things land. And it's good to hear that, you know, video conferencing made the cut, at least to
Yeah.
move forward.
Oh, it looks like Christina maybe froze there for a minute.
I would make a motion to adjourn. Non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
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 Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for getting on the UETN board meeting this morning. We sure appreciate the work that each of you do.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great Valentine's and President's Day. Take care.
A lot of money into this. So I've always said